Welcome to Susan LoPresti Wellness Mind, Body, and Soul podcast. This is the go-to space for midlife and mature women who are ready to reclaim their health, boost their energy, and live long, vibrant, and purposeful lives. Each week, we dive deep into natural wellness, holistic healing, anti-aging strategies, and healthy lifestyle habits to help you feel your best physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Whether you're navigating menopause, working through any kind of chronic condition, or simply wanting to age gracefully and intentionally, this show is your sanctuary for science-backed insights, powerful stories, and soul-nourishing inspiration. So, if you're a woman who's over 40 or 50 or older, looking to thrive in the next chapter of your life, you're in the right place. Today, I have a very special guest with me. Her name is Megan Edge. And since 2007, Megan has been helping people via her counseling services with a focus on empowerment and deep healing of emotional, energetic, and physical trauma. After 3 decades of studying in the metaphysical field of astral projection, rune stones, dream work, tarot, chakras, EFT, auras, and angel therapy, and past lives, completing various certification programs along with degrees in social work, women's studies, and geology, she has been named a master healer. A generational forager, Megan has ethically harvested from the forest since a child, and now, through her shop, Beyond the Garden Gate, she shares Mother Nature's healing bounties with her teas, her salves, and tinctures. She's also the creator of the Heart's Journey, Healing Hearts Oracle Cards and Guidebook. So without further ado, Megan, welcome to my podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. I have a ton of questions that I've already written down, and I can't wait to dive into this powerful conversation with you.
Susan, I'm really excited to be here as well.
Good, I'm so glad. So, I understand that you've been on a path of deep study and healing for over 3 decades. So, can
Yes.
you share with us what first drew you to metaphysical work and healing? Like, did you know as a young child that you had some kind of a gift, or did it come on later on?
Oh, that's a good question. I wasn't aware as a child that I had a gift, but when I look back on the sorts of things that I used to do as a child, it's clear to me that I certainly had a desire to be of help to other people, to help make things better if I could. If there was a rainstorm and there were worms stuck in puddles, I'd save the worms, and if there was a bird with a broken wing, I'd take it home to my mom. And equally, if there was a friend who was sad or upset about something, I would do everything I could to comfort them and try to make them feel better. So it's certainly something that came naturally to me, this desire, this empathy, I
Yeah.
guess as an empath, right? When I see something or someone that's in pain, I instinctively want to help them with that. The path to healing is a little different. Personal, I mean, it's one thing to be a healer for other people. It's another thing to be a healer for ourselves, and that
Yeah.
isn't always the easiest if we don't recognize that we're in pain. But from an early age, let's see, well, university, I did crisis counseling training and I was an on-call crisis counselor at the age of 20, 21. And I began to realize fairly quickly that the women who were dealing with immediate trauma needed somebody who had more experience than I did at that age because I hadn't done a lot of my own work yet. And,
Hmm.
and who was I at 20 to really be able to profoundly make a difference in someone's healing if I didn't have the tools or the experience or, quite frankly, the maturity to know how to best do that. So that awareness is where I became really committed to I want to understand everything I can understand about the way that the human mind and body works,
Yeah.
and the way in which faith comes into that equation. And that can be faith in any number of things. It doesn't have to be a faith in an organized religious sense. It can be faith in a spiritual sense. And
Mhm.
metaphysics as a practice really attracted me because it lets us think outside the box, and it gives us alternatives to understanding the world around us and how we can make a difference in that world.
Now, do you think that you had childhood trauma or trauma at all in yourself
Yes,
as a young girl?
I did. And at the same time, I had a lovely childhood. I had a really loving mother and father. I had a cottage that I could go to. I was exposed to nature right from the get-go, which has become a really major component in the healing work that I do now.
Yes.
And yes, yeah, some of it is just, I don't know, the basic childhood trauma that we all might experience when our best friend, we get in a big fight with our best friend
Yeah.
and she leaves the friendship and suddenly everybody's turned against you. You know, there's that kind of experience.
Yes.
Or the trauma of getting lost in a busy place. You know, trauma can show up in a lot of different ways, and we can inherit trauma as well.
Yes.
So, trauma that my mother may have experienced as a child, and I know that she did, that gets inherited at a cellular level, passed along in the hopes, I believe, and this is a metaphysical approach to this, in the hopes that the next generation can heal that trauma and it
Yes.
doesn't have to carry forward. My parents divorced when I was 15. That was a huge trauma. I was sexually assaulted when I was 15 as well. So there was another trauma. And trauma often does that. It layers and it what's the like we collect traumas. I'm getting goosebumps as I'm saying this.
Wow.
We collect traumas until I feel we get to a point in our journey where the body can no longer hold that trauma, nor does it wish to,
Yeah.
and it will try to get our attention in the form of disease and illness and injury. And if we have the wherewithal and the understanding that that's what's happening, then as an adult, we can step into the acknowledgement and then the healing of that trauma. And I believe that is possible at a very significant and deep level, that we can achieve deep and permanent healing from these experiences of our lives.
Could anxiety be a message of trauma as well? If all of a sudden you start experiencing anxiety where you never had it before?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, so that's another way. So
Yeah.
you studied a wide range of practices from astro protection and also dream work to tarot and EFT. Was there a turning point when you knew that this was your life's calling?
Yes. There was a couple of turning points, in fact. One was when my mother died, and she had had a long history of very radical surgeries in an effort to have her be healthy, and ultimately she died from complications of those surgeries as well as an addiction that she was struggling with. And as I saw her go through the mainstream medical system and I watched how she was so fundamentally failed by that system.
Yes.
And I knew that at the time I couldn't do anything differently to help her. I didn't have the tools yet to help her, but that really that was transformative for me. How
How
could
old were
her
you? How old were you when that?
Well, I was in my early 30s when she died, but she'd been struggling with these health issues for much of her adult life and certainly the last 10 years of her life.
Okay.
She has I mean, I now believe that she had celiac disease, but it was misdiagnosed and misdiagnosed, and she ended up with a radical ileostomy, which is when the entire large intestine is removed, as well as a complete bladder reconstruction, hysterectomy. There was all of these really invasive surgeries that she underwent in an effort for her to be healthy, except that each one of these experiences made her less and less healthy.
Yeah.
And she lost her sense of herself as a vital human being as she went through these surgeries. And the thing that was missing, Susan, from all of this experience for her was any kind of support or counseling at the medical level. You know, she went in for exploratory surgery and she woke up without a large intestine. That is a life-altering experience. And no one spoke to her about what this was going to mean moving forward. No one asked her how she was. There was no supports in place for her when this was happening to her. And I could see that as a really significant lacking in our medical system, in that we only address the physical, we do not address the emotional and the energetic. And you cannot have permanent healing, in my opinion, unless all three of those aspects of the human experience are taken into consideration
Yes.
when we're doing this kind of healing work.
And I don't think they're there as of yet, as far as the medical field. They're not there.
Certainly, no, certainly not in mainstream medical training.
No.
Now, there are doctors, I'm witnessing doctors stepping forward who have become very disillusioned with the way in which they were taught and also how they're allowed to practice in terms of the limitations of that practice and those abilities. And they are now seeking a different kind of education and bringing in a more functional model or
Yeah.
a more holistic approach, in a sense, going back to the days when the wise women of the village knew every single person and everything that was happening in their lives, and so could address a scenario, a situation from that holistic perspective. Or when the early doctors would come into the house and they would see the circumstances and understand that those circumstances could be leading to the illness or disease that their patient was presenting with. And we just don't have that anymore, but I believe we're coming back to that, at least some percentage of medical.
I do as well. I do as well. I want to just finish up with the medical.
Mm,
I do believe that functional medicine is becoming more and more known, and
hmm.
a lot of women, especially menopausal women, are turning towards functional medicine because they're not getting the answers in conventional medicine. I also see a functional medicine doctor, and that's when I started, when I was in perimenopause. So I'm
Hmm.
hoping that things will change. The unfortunate part of functional medicine is that it's not covered by medical insurance.
Yeah,
So that makes it a little bit difficult for people who don't have the means to be able to afford that.
that's so true. And it's equally true for the kind of work that I do and I have been doing for the last 30 years. There is no governing body in Canada for energy healers, intuitive counselors, alternative trauma healers, herbalists, there's, and so because it's interesting, because there isn't a governing body, it means that as practitioners, we're not bound by a set of stringent rules and regulations about how we can engage with our clients or our patients.
Right.
But the other side of that is that it lacks a certain consistent legitimacy, and it's generally not covered by insurance here
Right.
either. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad.
Though I have seen in some instances, like our car insurance, if there's a car accident, ICBC, which is our provincial car insurance, will now cover certain modalities like Reiki and acupuncture as methods of healing injury from car accidents. So I have a little bit of hope that
Yes. Well, maybe
something's
baby
changing.
steps, right?
Exactly,
So you
exactly.
have to be in a car accident,
Hmm.
which is sad. So you're known as a master healer. What does being a master healer mean to you, and how do you embody that in your work with clients?
Mm, that's a great question. I love how you've worded that. I was gifted the title Master Healer 3 times. And at the third time that a client said to me, different clients said to me, "You really have a mastery of healing. You need to call yourself a master healer." I appreciated that I wasn't doing them any good service by denying that
Yes.
title. I took it on very humbly and with great reticence because it sounded far too hoity-toity or highfalutin for how I considered myself at that time as a humble healer. And then I realized that also that was doing myself a disservice to see myself as that humble, quiet healer, when in fact, we need healers in this world. And it felt like it was my role to step into and begin to own that title in the same way that an MD would put MD at the end of his or her name, right?
Absolutely.
And what it is a reflection of not only the number of years and the many modalities that I've trained in and studied and learned, so that I can then bring those healing modalities to my clients, but it's also a reflection of the value that traditionally cultures have placed on people who were designated to be the healers in those communities. And as a woman, it felt especially important to be able to say, this is who I am, and this is the work that I do, and this is the value of the work that I do.
Yeah,
Because not a lot of women in our culture are offered that opportunity or know how to step into that. It's
right.
just not what we're given.
Great point. Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
So let's talk about trauma because it manifests emotionally, it manifests physically and energetically. So, how do you
Mhm.
address all of these layers when you're working with someone?
The first place that I start with is the story. And by that, I mean the way in which a person is talking about their experiences, what they consider to be a traumatic experience. There's often an education piece around that because people can be walking around not recognizing or realizing that they are carrying trauma if they have dismissed a traumatic event in their life as not being that relevant or not being that important, or they weren't given the opportunity to do any work around it as it was happening, they would diminish the impact of that trauma. So part of the approach is in when I hear their story, I listen to the words that they're using to describe their experiences, and from there, I get clues as to what as to how they're holding that trauma in their mind, in their understanding of their life's experiences, and then how it may end up showing up in their bodies in different ways. And you addressed the physical and the energetic and the emotional, but the spiritual is also a really important piece to bring into our understanding of the effect that holding on to trauma has for us. It can shake us to the foundation of our belief systems. And so once I have an understanding of the story as the person is telling it and can gently demonstrate other ways in which they can speak of themselves, but also the value of their experiences and give those experiences meaning and purpose in their life,
Mhm.
then we can start to shift the relationship that my client has with their life experiences. And therein lies that deep and permanent healing. So rather than remaining a victim to their experiences, they begin to own, integrate, and understand on that spiritual level the possible how and why these experiences have shown up in their lives, or at a deeper level, and certainly not a first session, but maybe 6 or 7 sessions in, why at the soul level they would have called those experiences in
Right.
and what their participation was in those experiences for the value and purpose that that could give to them as they understand themselves.
Would you consider that generational trauma?
Absolutely generational trauma, but it can also be super fresh trauma.
Yeah.
It can be something that happened last week. And here's the thing, if it's something that happened last week, we can get on it right away.
Yes.
And then the person doesn't have to hold it for so many decades.
Right. But with generational trauma and
Hmm.
it being repressed, so the person doesn't know
Hmm.
why these symptoms are manifesting, how do you get to the core of what the trauma is all about?
Sometimes and sometimes not. And it's less important in the work that I do, Susan, for somebody to be re-traumatized or to
Oh,
take on at a conscious level the trauma that their mother or father or great grandparents may have experienced. We work with a buffer between the experience itself and the person's awareness of that experience. And I help my clients move into what I call the observer role, in that they can see through their memory or through the stories that have been told to them what that trauma could have looked like and what it could have been for the ancestor, but they don't embody it themselves. They don't have a trigger physiological response to that trauma. So it's more of like we tap into the intellectual energy, of understanding, let's say, for example, the Holocaust. My step family is Jewish. My step grandparents were in the Holocaust. They were in the concentration camps. They had some horrific experiences, as many, many did. Now, I don't have that generational trauma, but my stepmother does, and my stepsisters and brothers do. They have it through their DNA. I can help my if my stepmother was a client of mine, I could help her distance herself intellectually and emotionally from the experiences of the earlier generations in order for her to, in a way, what's that word when you step into the role of for somebody else?
Embody?
Yes, embody, but surrogate.
Oh,
She can
yes.
surrogate, she can be the surrogate for the healing
Yeah,
of those previous generations and be able to access healing at a level that the her mother and her father and her grandparents perhaps didn't have an opportunity in their lives to do so. So she can do it for them. That's how ancestral trauma gets healed. It's
okay.
when someone in this generation is willing to be a surrogate. And in that intention, and the intention around healing is very important in the intention to heal, to release from the genetic line, the ancestral line, the energy of that trauma. We don't need to go into the trauma. We don't need to experience it at our own physiological level. We hold space for it. And that's at a deeper energetic level. And we often do that through energy healing work, where words are no longer sufficient to describe what the person has experienced because it's at a cellular level. That's when we move into the intuitive energy massage, which is a modality that I've created and I certify people in that brings in the body's ability to communicate through touch and through energetic healing what needs to be released without us having to go back into the minute details of that traumatic event or those traumatic events.
So you don't have to relive it or
You
relive
don't.
someone else's trauma.
You do not have to relive someone else's trauma. You also don't have to relive your own trauma. And with trauma healing, my experience has been that usually by the time someone gets to someone like me, they've been down some very conventional roads and they've done a lot of talk therapy, but the talk therapy hasn't healed them. It's only re-traumatized them because
Yeah,
there's no mechanism within the talk therapy for the therapist to then do something different with that story, with that information.
right.
But when we add in the spiritual component, we add in the purpose and value, we add in the intellectual, the energetic, and the emotional, then we can access what's beneath the story and we don't have to re-traumatize the person, the client. Instead, like I said, we can hold that energetic space for that healing to happen. And I've seen some amazing releases of energy on my table and in my healing room when we hit that core source. You know,
Yeah.
and this is the other thing about trauma layering. If we find the initial first trauma of anybody's lifetime and we can do the healing work of that event, then it's like a house of cards. And everything else that has been built up on that
Oh,
trauma and all the additional traumas, they also heal without us having to go through every single one of them
ah,
in detail.
that's excellent. Now,
Yeah.
do you work with clients online, virtually at all, or is everything in person?
No, I can do both. I've had clients from all around the world. I do love the in person.
Yes.
I also understand that energy doesn't have limits or barriers. So if we're sitting here, I'm in my home, you're in your home, but we're in each other's energies. Our
Yeah.
energies have connected across time and space for us to hold this conversation. So the same thing happens in any kind of healing work that we do online as
Right.
well. Yeah.
So let's talk about foraging. Is that how you say it?
That's how you say it, foraging.
Foraging and
Yes.
herbal medicine. So you've
Mhm.
been foraging since you're a child,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So what is that all about?
Yes. So, for those who are not familiar with the word foraging, and it was only recently that I realized and understood that not everybody is familiar with it because it is something that I've grown up with my whole life. Essentially, what foraging is going out of your environment, potentially, unless you're doing urban foraging, but we can get to that in a moment, You're going out into a natural habitat. You're going into a forest, you're going into the fields or a beach, a lake, something like that. And you're identifying edible and medicinal plants and then understanding how to collect those plants and then taking them home and eating them or turning them into medicine.
Okay.
That's the basics of it. So if anybody in the audience has ever gone blackberry picking or blueberry picking,
Yes, I have as
apple
a
picking,
child.
yes, that's foraging.
Okay.
That's
I
what
used
that's
to
what
love to
foraging is.
do that.
Mhm. Absolutely. And when we talk about foraging and healing, what you just shared there, I used to love to do that. You have a whole host of memories
Yes.
about what that was like
Yes.
and the satisfaction and the thrill and the taste in your mouth when you'd pop one in your mouth that should have gone in the basket and the sun shining. All of that is in your cells as a cellular memory. And when you access that, even right now, your whole system is being flooded with positive healing energy from that beautiful memory that you have. That's how powerful it can be.
When you talked about picking berries, that image, when I was a young girl, we had a summer house in Long Island, and it was very rural at that time in the 60s. And we used to
Mhm.
do all kinds of things like that, fishing and picking berries and great
Yeah.
memories. And it
Yeah.
definitely changes the energy in your body.
It absolutely does. And how fortunate that you had those experiences. And I had similar ones growing up as well. I always had access to a cottage or green space. And it didn't occur to me until I was in my probably even early 30s that that is not everyone's experience
Right.
of nature. And I remember meeting one of my students, and I was holding a retreat at our cottage. And this student confessed to me she had never walked in the rain and
Wow.
she was terrified of the forest. And this is a young woman who grew up on Vancouver Island, which is where I live in Canada, on the west coast of Canada, surrounded by trees and beaches and the ocean and the rain. And somehow she got to be almost 25 years old and she had never walked in the rain or gone into a forest. And that blew my mind. I could not comprehend how that was even possible.
Yeah.
But what it helped me to see is that it's not everyone's experience to be exposed to fishing and picking berries and going mushrooming and or even being in nature or even feeling comfortable in the forest or in a wild space. The majority of the population in North America lives in cities and have been taught either overtly or covertly that nature is scary and we shouldn't engage with it. So, to bring people back to an understanding that we are part of nature, we come from nature, there's nothing to fear in nature. I'd be way more afraid to go to a nuclear power plant than I would be to go walk in the woods. For goodness sakes, there's a lot of things in a nuclear power plant that can kill me, but there's very little in the forest that's going to do that. You know?
Absolutely.
But even if it's something as simple as going to a green space, finding the local park and sitting underneath a tree and acknowledging the tree, learning what kind of tree it is, just engaging in some way with nature because it is all around us, even in the deepest parts of the cities. There's dandelions growing up in the cracks. Nature's
Yes.
tenacious.
There's
Start,
a whole bunch of women that I see that actually pick the dandelions out of the grass.
yes,
I
I
see
do as
them
well.
doing it all the time.
Well, but are they picking it because they're eating it, or are they picking it because they don't like the dandelions?
No, no, they're picking it to eat it for
Okay,
sure.
good.
Because I've asked,
Yes. Yeah, the dandelions, every part of a dandelion is incredibly nutritious and incredibly medicinal. And we did ourselves a huge disservice in maligning the dandelion and making it the target of many, many herbicide campaigns. And in fact, in Canada, we have something called the Noxious Weed Act. I think there's something similar in the United States. And it's a list of plants that, if discovered in your garden, if a neighbor sees it in your garden, a neighbor can call the bylaw officer to come and identify this plant and then have you eradicate it
oh,
and fine you. And dandelions
oh,
used to be on that list. They used to be on that list. Things like foxgloves are on that list. Potato vine is on that list. It's a huge, huge list. Most of the things that are on that list are not going to kill you. Most of the things that are on that list are medicinal and have been used for tens of thousands of years for their medicine,
Wow.
interestingly. I'll just let people get to come to their own conclusions around that. But
Yes. I want to ask you, what are a few herbs or plants that you believe every woman should have in her wellness toolkit?
well, dandelions, absolutely, because we were just talking about it. Dandelion root is excellent as a liver tonic, and you can buy dried roasted dandelion root as an alternative to coffee. And what I do with it, I harvest my own. And you do want to make sure with dandelions that you're picking them from a place that hasn't been sprayed with herbicides and that
Yes.
is probably not right next to the road, to a busy road, because you're going to have exhaust and tire bits and stuff like that on them. But if you've got a nice spot in your garden where you can start growing dandelions, excellent as a liver tonic, excellent as an anti-inflammatory, and an overall boost to the immune system. The leaves are edible. You can put them into salads. You can blanch them like you would spinach leaves,
Hmm.
uh, or you can dry them and powder them. That's what I do. I mean, I also freeze them and I use them in soups and stews and things like that. And the flowers are wonderful for making dandelion wine, if anybody's feeling, that ambitious, or sprinkling the petals in your salad. So
Right.
it's a complete tonic for the body. Another one that I love is stinging nettle, especially the early spring stinging nettle shoots just as they're coming up. This is again another amazing spring tonic. And when we think of spring tonics, they're important because our bodies tend to get sluggish over the winter time, and certainly in modern society, our bodies get really sluggish. We want to kickstart our liver, we want to kickstart our central nervous system. We want to boost everything in the springtime. And so these early flowers and herbs that come up are excellent. Nettle has a high silica content, high vitamin C content, so really good for our hair, our skin, our nails, any of our connective tissues.
Mhm.
It's also really great as a natural antihistamine. So it's another reason to have it in the springtime if people have allergies. You can buy nettle flower or nettle leaf tea in
Yes.
probably any herb store or any, natural food store would have that, as well as the dandelions.
Yeah.
And then the other one, well, I love making herbal oils. And a
Oh.
lot of the herbal oils I make with flowers for the health skin benefits that the constituents of these flowers have. So the common daisy, for example, daisies and chrysanthemums are used extensively in Asian cosmetics for the benefit to the skin. They help with fine lines and wrinkles, they help boost collagen, they help with dryness. They've got some amazing emollient properties. And so then what I do is I take the flowers, I infuse them in an oil, and this will be a organic carrier oil, something really light for the skin like sunflower oil or grapeseed oil.
Mhm.
Infuse the petals. That infusion pulls out the components of the petal that have the benefits to our skin, and then I make it into a serum. And so just a couple of drops of the serum in your hand, put it on your face before bed, or put it in your skincare routine or in your bath, and you've got this beautiful skin supporting substance that is just absolutely wonderful.
I'm looking at the results of your face because you have
You.
beautiful skin and it has a beautiful glow to it.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I see it right there, right before
Thank
my
you.
eyes.
Thank you. Well, one
Wow,
of the
that's great. I love
yeah.
that. Yeah, do you have one more or
Well, what I wanted to add to that is everything everything that I do throughout my day connects me with some kind of medicine. And whether I'm working with essential oils, I'm working with herbs, I'm working with food, I'm very intentional in what I put in my body, and
yeah.
I've made it a habit. Like I can't imagine not using my herbal oil blend first thing in the morning that helps my body produce the right levels of progesterone and estrogen. I did not go through any kind of catastrophic menopause at all, and I contribute that to the essential oils that I have been working with for the last number of years. I also eat an enormous amount of mushrooms. Those are incredibly good for us. For example, my water is never just plain water. This has got organic lemon juice in it. It's got colloidal silver in it. Just a couple of quick things that I can put in, a little bit of dandelion tincture, some ashwagandha. And I know it can sound like a lot, and I understand that it can feel overwhelming if somebody's not sure, if a woman's not sure, where do I start? What do I change first? Anything you change is going to be beneficial. And if you just add one pure medical therapeutic grade essential oil to your routine, maybe a couple of drops of lavender oil on your hand at night and just breathe it in before you go to sleep, you've started something new and you're creating intentional change because you're engaging with your body and your whole body, all the systems that we've been talking about.
Mhm.
And it becomes, I mean, for me, it became a really exciting thing to learn the next thing I was going to add, that I was going to put into my routine. So that at this point, I'm 56, I turned 56 in May, and I feel amazing. I feel younger now than I did when I was in my 30s and 40s. Now, I was given a diagnosis of fibromyalgia when I was in my 30s, which explained an enormous amount about why I was in such pain. And when you were asking earlier, what was a significant turning point? Receiving that diagnosis of fibromyalgia was the best thing that ever happened to me because it gave me something to work with. I could sink my teeth into it. I could start researching. I could find out what can I do to support myself, manage my symptoms, and understand why I've created this and called this into my life. What needs to change? And so it gave me, like I just said, it gave me something to work with. So instead of feeling sad for myself or sorry for myself or, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And instead of allowing the doctors to say, right, well, this is your life now and here's all the medications we're going to
Yeah.
give you. I said, no, thank you. I want to learn more about this. I want to understand this better. And that was really what launched me fully engaged in my own healing work. And then experiencing the value of the things that I was doing. I took gluten out of my diet, for example. Over a number of years, I left the marriage that I was in because it was contributing to that
Yeah.
to that pain that I was in. It took time and it took commitment, and I wasn't always good at it, but I could recognize when I had slipped and maybe I'd had a bit of gluten when I knew that I shouldn't have had. And I could feel the consequences in my body. That spurred me even further to learn as much as I possibly could about healthy living.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's going from a toxic environment internally and externally and giving yourself permission to move into healthy living, whatever that looks like for you.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
great. That is so good. It's incredible. So I just want to touch on you created the Hearts Journey, Healing Hearts Oracle cards. What inspired this deck for you, and how do you recommend people use it in their own healing?
Beautiful. So I was touched on the fibromyalgia and that diagnosis, and that one of the things that I realized I needed to do was to heal the relationship with my husband at the time. And I tried a lot of things, did a lot of things. But it got to the point where he informed me that he didn't think he could come with me on this healing journey, that he felt quite comfortable and marginally happy enough the way things were, that he wasn't willing to undertake the journey to do the work, to bring our relationship to a deeper place.
Mhm.
He was afraid that if we did that, I would figure out that he wasn't the right person for me. These were his words. I'm paraphrasing slightly, but these were essentially his
Yeah.
words. I don't want you to learn that I'm not the right person for you.
Well, he
Okay.
already was not the right person for you.
Yes. In that moment, yes. And I came to the understanding that we had traveled together for as far as and as long as we could, and
Yeah.
now was the appropriate time to move away from one another. And we had two small children, so of course it all needed to be done with integrity and, the highest authenticity as possible. That was the approach that I took with it. And so one of the things I did in a moment of despair was to shout out to the universe, please give me a sign. Just show me a sign that when I see it or a symbol, I will know that I'm following my heart above all other voices and I am in integrity and authenticity. And the next day I started seeing hearts everywhere. I started seeing these amazing heart shapes in the rocks on the beach, in the clouds, in the sky. They were everywhere. And so I started taking photographs of them. And I had those photographs on my phone, and they were just for me, so that in those moments of despair, I could look at them and remind myself that, right, I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing the best I can with what I know. I'm trying not to hurt anybody, but I can't stay where I am. And so, how do I move forward? And these amazing hearts, like here's an example. This is called
Oh,
Light Heart, and this is an oyster shell, and it's on the beach, and the darkness of the beach is the color of the sand. And then there's another little tiny heart in the hole. It's hard to
I
see, but
see it.
yeah. And so so I just had them on my phone. But I have worked with oracle cards as a healing tool for many decades, and I find them to be an amazing meditation tool. They're wonderful for hits of wisdom. They give you something to think about, and more times than not, they're absolutely accurate. Like you can't make it up. I've like I
Right.
said, been working with them for so long. So it occurred to me after I started sharing these pictures of hearts on my Facebook page as a way to help other people feel better that these could potentially be a deck of oracle cards that people could work with.
Wow.
And when I put that out to my community that I was considering this, I got so many yes, hell yes, yes, please make that deck of oracle cards. So that became the inspiration for creating this. But I wanted it to be more than a deck of oracle cards. And there are tens of thousands of decks of oracle cards out in the world now, which is an amazing thing. And as well
Yes.
as tarot, they're a little different, but they're complementary. The thing that I noticed in the decks that I was using with my clients is there was no story. There was no story by the author of why they made that deck of oracle cards, why they chose that theme or those images.
Uh-huh.
And I felt that that was missing because when I'm working with a divination tool like an oracle deck, I want to have a relationship with the imagery and with the messaging, and a deeper relationship can happen when we understand the story, the
Mhm.
what was the intent with this. So I decided to create a set of not just the oracle cards, and I'll pull an oracle card in a moment for the show, but I wanted it to have everything in it. So here's this beautiful box set. It's a hardcover box. The oracle cards come in their own little box. There's 42 full color oracle cards. There's a pen, there's a bookmark, and then there's the journal. So you can keep
Ah,
all of your oracle card readings or your grocery lists or whatever, your wish lists, and then the guidebook. And in the
ah,
guidebook, I share my story. I share that story of realizing that this marriage had completed its energy
yes.
and what that felt like and what that was like as the one to say, this isn't, we're not doing this anymore. We can't do this anymore the way that we're doing it. And some of the things that I did along the way to move myself through that process with the integrity and the authenticity that I was trying to achieve. I teach people how to work with oracle cards. Why would you work with oracle cards? How to hold a reading for yourself or for others. And then each card has its own page.
Ah,
So there's
beautiful.
more messaging of what was happening for me while I was taking these pictures. Because the thing about these photographs is that every heart is something about what I was experiencing at the time.
Yeah.
And so the messages on the cards are very personal, but they also are universal to what that experience is like of either being left or doing doing the leaving, right?
Right.
The light heart card, I love this one. This one says, "You bring light to others even in their darkest hours. Your wisdom and compassion help others see their own value. Bring your gifts to the world. The world needs the authentic you."
I love it.
And this was so true for me because, Susan, I had lost myself in that marriage. I'd
Yeah.
lost myself in my relationship with my husband, and I had allowed myself to become very small and very quiet, right? And I
You
forgot
could be
that.
telling my story right now, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, yes, yes. And I just had forgotten who the authentic me was.
Yeah.
And I had forgotten why I came here. And when I was shared at the very beginning that I was the kid that saved the worms from the puddles after the rainstorm, I'd forgotten that my purpose in being here, in addition to being a mother of two beautiful, beautiful young women now and those little girls who they were at the time, and that's my main focus. In addition to that, it is to hold space for this healing journey so that we can know who our authentic sovereign selves are, and we can show up in the world as brightly as possible and not allow ourselves to be dimmed by other people's insecurities
Hmm.
or their intimidation by a person who's standing in their brightness.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a process.
It's a beautiful message for the women out there that are listening to this episode.
Yeah. This is another one of my favorite cards. So this ties into the medicine and the plants as well as the hearts and the healing heart. So this is a heart knot. And what you're looking at here is a type of lichen. Lichen hangs generally from trees or it grows on rocks. It's one of the very first plants that populated the earth millions and millions and millions of years ago. It's also incredibly healing. Usnea, which is what this one is called, or old man's beard is the common name, is a source of vitamin D. And if you're buying vitamin D liquid, you're either buying it from lanolin, which comes from sheep, or you're buying it as a lichen extract. Extremely high in vitamin D, extremely anti-cancerous. It's anti-inflammatory, and it's very good for the lungs and very good for the urinary tract. It's a natural antibiotic. So
Wow.
it has all of these amazing medicinal properties. And here there's this little heart shape in the center of
Yes.
this swath. And what it does is it grows on the trees and then the wind blows it and it falls down on the ground, which is where we collect it. We never take it from the trees. We always collect it from the ground.
Okay.
And then eventually it'll spore and it'll produce new usnea. It's very delicate. It's like vermicelli noodles. It's very, very delicate. And so the message of the heart knot is that delicate hearts can become so entangled in the judgment of others, causing confusion, pain, and fear. It is time to take a break from struggling to know what another wants of you. Simply float in who you are.
Wow.
It's exhausting trying to meet someone's expectations if you don't
Yes.
know what they
It's
are.
impossible as
Yeah.
well.
It is impossible. And I learned that a lot of what I was experiencing, a lot of my fibromyalgia symptoms were coming from that place of extreme exhaustion from trying to convince a man that I loved him when he continually asked me why,
Wow.
right? I can't be someone else's ego. I cannot be their self-worth. I cannot be their confidence. I can only be my own.
Right.
And when I am my own, when I am my own self-worth, my own confidence, my own empowerment, then I can be in other people's lives as that. And they can do with me what they want. They can do with that relationship what they want,
Right.
right? And it's interesting because when we talk about the healing journey, when a person is willing, and I think especially when women are willing to step into, I am going to do my healing work now, we immediately become mentors for other women and other people in our lives,
Yes.
right? And other people see the difference. They feel the difference in us. And sometimes they love that and they want to know more. And sometimes they don't love that.
Yes.
They want to try to make us who they are comfortable with,
Yes.
which was my experience. And when I realized that, I knew, okay, come hell or high water, I need to move on with my life and my work, the
Yes.
work that I want to do of helping other people.
Do you have a nice relationship with your ex because he's the father of you two girls?
I have a respectful relationship with him.
Yeah, I as well.
Yeah. I had hoped that we could forge a friendship, a new friendship, because we had been best friends for many, many years. We knew each
Yeah.
other in high school. And it became very evident to me very quickly in this whole journey that that was not going to be the case. And he moved into anger, resentment, and bitterness very quickly.
Mhm.
And I saw sides of him that I had hoped to never see. And that's when I really knew I can't put myself in this situation any any longer. However, it was always and remains important to me that none of that is ever in front of our daughters,
Mhm.
and that when we interact with one another at the door, it is respectful.
Yeah,
And when we co parent, it is respectful.
right. That's the most important thing, really, is your
Yeah.
children.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This was an unbelievable conversation with you. Where can people connect with you? And
Thank
how could we get your oracle cards?
Thank you. I would love for my oracle cards to be in the
Yes.
hands of your audience. I have provided an evergreen coupon that will hopefully be in the show notes where people can click on that and receive 20% off of the
Okay.
cards, and they would come directly from me. So I can personalize
Oh,
the deck for
excellent.
anybody who wants them. I will say right now, unfortunately, with the tariffs that are happening at the US, it's not as easy for me to ship to the United States.
Oh,
I have to pay the duty and the customs, and then I have to pass some of that cost on to my clients. So when somebody orders from the US, they will eventually get their deck when they order it through me.
right.
You can go to Amazon. I do have an author page on Amazon.com and .ca, and I think you can still place an order through Amazon.com if you wish to. It won't, it'll come wrapped in plastic, and the contents will be in a different order. So I just encourage people to take out the shelf that the cards are in, put it on the bottom, put the books on top, because that's how it should have gone.
Okay.
But anyways, that having been said, you can also reach me at my website, which is meganedge.ca, and you can order the book through there. Although I don't think you get the discount that way, so use the coupon.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
And
and
I
then there's
probably have it in the emails that I received.
it will be in the media kit, but what you might not have in the media kit is a link to the next book that I've participated in, which is this beautiful book here
Oh,
called The Expressive Arts: The Ultimate Creative Guide to Transforming Stress. And in my chapter, I share more about that experience. I give you a time shot of what was happening for me at the moment that I realized my life was about to change irrevocably. And I share a tool about how to hold an oracle card reading. There's 21 other amazing authors in this book as well, all practitioners, coaches, healers, who equally are sharing a piece of their journey, and then a tool that the reader can use to be creatively artistic in their along their healing journey.
wow.
I'll make sure you get the link to this one because I don't think that it's in the media kit that you received, because
Okay.
this has just been published. And I'm also on, you can find me on LinkedIn under Megan Edge Healing. I have a beautiful YouTube channel with over 300 videos, workshops, talks I've given, podcasts I've done. That's also Megan Edge Healing on YouTube. And then LinkedIn, Instagram, all the usual places.
Yes.
Yes.
The usual suspects.
Yes, the usual suspects, exactly.
Megan, thank you so much. This was such a pleasure. I enjoyed this episode immensely, our conversation. I feel very connected to you in so many ways, and I'd love to have you come back on again.
Thank you. It would be my pleasure, and I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
I'm so
Yeah.
glad. Thank you again. Thank you so much for joining here today. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a comment and let me know. And if you think that anyone who you know and love could benefit from listening to this episode, please share it out with them. If you're not currently subscribed to my channel, please be sure to follow me here. And until the next time, be well, stay happy, and bye for now. Take good care, everyone.